Gonna begin with a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we are so thankful, Lord, for the Sabbath hours that are coming for some and some that's already there. And we're thankful for the blessings that we receive in fellowship and the special blessing that you promise on the Sabbath. We just ask, Lord, that your Holy Spirit can teach us, that we can be comforted in a biblical sense, that we can see our sins, that your righteousness, and that we can enter into your judgment, and that we can pass that test by the blood of Christ and what he's done for us and in us and through us. And so, Lord, we just ask that as we study these things, that you can guide us, that you can guide our minds, guide this presentation, and that you can encourage us through your word and through your providences. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, good evening, everyone. And the study today is tying up some loose ends on the week of Christ and applying some of these things to our lives. Now, I'm gonna share my screen here, my PowerPoint, and this is kind of messy here. It's sort of a work in progress, so maybe I should get rid of some of this stuff that's in the way. But I want to look at the week of Christ, and here I don't have the whole week of Christ diagram worked into this, but I'm just going to go from left to right, and I'm going to draw some of this stuff out. Now, one of the things we saw in the week of Christ, and I asked this question before, and I got a lot of silence, and I wasn't sure if people just were shy or if they just didn't remember. But what was the key from Daniel 9, verse 26 and 27 that I used to confirm that the week of Christ, the way that I looked at it, was valid? That is, that the dates going from left to right, which were counting days, lined up with the years going from right to left. What was it from Daniel 9, verse 26 and 27 that I used to confirm that observation? Does anybody remember? So what date was it? And anybody know?
The correspondence between the symbols and the years.
Okay, and what symbol? What was the correspondence? So we had, for instance, 1844 lined up with the 10th day of the 7th month, right? So that's where I noticed it first, and that 1260 days, if I counted the crucifixion of Christ. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. See what I do. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in on this diagram. So this is the crucifixion of Christ. And if I was going to put a year under here, what year did I put under the crucifixion of Christ as a year?
34.
No, I put 538. And why did I do that?
Oh, gotcha.
Right? So why did I put 538 under the April 27th, 31 AD? Because what I had done is I'd counted from April 27th, 1260 days backwards, right? But why did I do that? Originally, why would I put 538, line it up with April 27th? it has to do with the chiasms. So what is it about the chiasms that would make me do that? Okay, so if I go here, what have I done here? What is this? Anybody? Can you see this? So what have I done? I've taken the week of Christ, the 70th week, and the 25/20 for Northern Israel. So why am I lining 31 AD up with 538? It's a simple question.
It's the center of the chiasm.
It's the center of the chiasm, right? So now this is, if of course, if you look at this week, is it 25/20 days from Christ's baptism to the stoning of Stephen?
Not exactly.
Yeah, it's not going to be exactly that many days, and that's because if we're using a prophetic year, it is 360 days, but a solar year has 365 and a quarter, and also, even if we take a biblical year, it's going to average out to that as well, even though each year is going to be a different length. And so when I ended up counting this, the actual number of days, so it was here, and I counted 1,260 days from 538, it came to 1798. That is, if I counted 538 as the center, and I counted the actual number of days back from the crucifixion, it would bring me to 1,260 years. So obviously 538 is going to line up with 1798, but I'm doing it backwards. Now, why did I do it backwards and not forward?
I can't remember.
Because what I had done is I'd taken the 10th day of the 7th month and found that it was September 30th, 27 AD. And that when I counted the number of days, I wasn't really thinking about whether I was counting forward or backwards. But when I counted the number of days from the crucifixion back to when Jesus would be baptized, it was 46 days short. And so what did that tell me? Anyone? What do we see there? So it's 46 days short. Does it make sense that I make the 1260, 1798, and 1844? People's sound's not working. I'm not hearing anybody talking.
Maybe you should ask if they're following you.
Is anybody following what I'm saying?
Yeah. I hear you.
Okay, good. So there was just, I saw this 46 years. And then the way that I confirm this, and you look at this, it'll say August 7th is 70 AD. Now, I'm saying that when I first lined this up, I counted from the cross. I knew that there's 468 years between 538 and 70 AD. And so I counted 468 days from April 27th, and I came to August 7th. And in my initial calculation, August 7th lined up with the 10th day of the 5th month. But now I'm arguing that August 6th lines up with the 10th day of the 5th month, not August 7th. Because it was how I was counting. Now, I've tried to explain this, and it's rather confusing, but one of the ways in which I look at the week of Christ is I can count it two different ways. I can count 25/20 days as actual individual days, or I can count from a date 25/20 days. And I'm gonna, if I count from a date and I count a cardinal count, it's going to be more than counting 25/20 actual days. Does that make sense? So for instance, 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's 3 days. But if I start on Friday and I count 3 days, how many days will I come, what day would I come to? So what's 3 days from today? What day of the week is it?
Monday.
Monday, right? So we would count it as Monday because we would count today and we'd count a cardinal count, right? So I can count two different ways. That there's actually more, but two different ways to count are cardinal and ordinal. So if I'm saying that Sunday is 3 days from today, I'm using an ordinal count, but I'm using a cardinal expression. And that's called inclusive reckoning. So when I give an ordinal count in cardinal expression, then I'm including today, but I'm not saying today's the first day, the next day is the second day, and the next day is the third day. I'm just saying 3 days. So those are 3 whole days. And the Millerites had the same trouble when they were counting the time prophecies of the 2300 days. That is, they didn't take into account there was no 0 year. And so when they were doing their math, they were imprecise about what they were doing. Now, technically speaking, if you started at the beginning of January 1st, 457 BC, and you counted 2300 days, where would you end? Or 2300 years? Where would you end? If you started on January 1st, 457, and you counted 2300 years, where would you end?
On January 1st of 1844.
Okay, you'd end on January 1st, 1844. But initially, the Millerites, even though they didn't take into account there was no 0 year, they started to understand that there was that 1 BC went to 1 AD, but that the way that they were counting was counting whole years. That is, they were counting from January 1st, 457, so to speak, to December 31st, 1843. That was really the first date they set. They would say, by 1843, 2300 years are complete. But they were counting from January 1st, which made no sense because unless the decree of Artaxerxes happened on January 1st, 457, which is possible. I mean, we know Ezra left on the first day of the first month in 457 with the decree in hand, but we don't know how soon the decree was issued beforehand. So in trying to deal with this, they started talking about the full year. And so they said, well, if the decree was issued in the spring, a full year, 2300 full years would bring you to the spring of 1844. So this idea that 2300 years would completely expire on the sunset commencing the first day of the first month. This was the idea that the Millerites had regarding 2300 years. They started to use the biblical year because of Ezra 7:9, the first day of the first month. And they came to understand that was a biblical year, not our calendar. And so this was shortly after they made the 1843 chart, which was in June of 1842. They started to figure this out. So they figured it out gradually from that time into 1843. They had pretty well established that there was no 0 year and that they were counting full years. But they still were going to have the decree being go into effect in the spring, or even issued in the spring, and that it would be completed in the spring of 1844. So Samuel Snow came to understand that it was probably in the fall that the decree went into effect. Now, his initial arguments were all mixed up, but at least he had the right idea. So hopefully that point is clear. Be nice if I got some feedback from you guys to know that you're actually listening. But so now the next thing that I did, so I counted these 70 AD, but it does, if you count from April 27th, 468 days, it depends how you count. Are you going to count from the beginning of April 27th? Or are you going to count from the end? And are you going to count ordinally or cardinally? Right? So I could count 468 days starting on April 27th at sunset, and then just count cardinally, and then I will come to August 7th. But I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to count 468 days with no zero. And I'm going to count them as starting. So April 27th would be the first day, and August 6th would be the 468th day. Does that make sense to people? Now, when I do that, it depends how I count from 538 to 70 AD as well. So if I count from 70 AD to 538, how would I normally count that? When I say it's 468 years, how am I counting that? Is anybody there? You guys need to be more interactive. Okay, when I add 468 to 70 AD, I get 538. When I'm adding, what does that imply? It implies I'm using a system with zeros, right? That is, I'm not counting 70 AD as 1. I'm counting it as 0. So in doing this, when I initially did the chart, I'm going to show you guys the chart. I had taken all of the dates and I had lined them up in such a way that, let me see here, I'm going to find this paper. So I'm just going to share this paper here. So this is the paper called In the Midst of the Week, and you see this calendar here. And the way that I did it is I wrote out a calendar with the biblical calendar in the top number in the box and the Julian calendar in the bottom number in the box. And it's going to say Nisan 1. So each of these are a biblical month. And then I'm lining up the Julian date underneath. Now, when I did it, I was just trying to match a day for a year perfectly. The problem with that is I was counting two different ways. I was counting cardinally when it came to the years, and I was counting ordinally when I came to the dates. And so in trying to figure that out, I would actually have to say there's 467 days between those dates rather than 468. So here you have on this calendar, you can see here, this is 31 AD, and this is April 14th is the first day of the first month, so April 14th is the first day of the first month, and Nisan 14, the day Jesus was crucified, is the 27th of April. And so that's how this lines up. And then what I would do is I would count from here 1, 2, 3, and like that to get to this 70 AD over here. So here's 70 AD, and it's this purple box on the left, and it says Av and July. So it's going to move to August here on the 4th of Av is August 1st. And you can see I have the 10th day of the 5th month line up with August 7th. So I'm saying that even though I can do it this way, there's a problem. And I don't know how to explain it other than I'm not I can't do it that way and be consistent. That is, I'm using two different systems of counting for the days and two different for the years. So the date, if I use the days and I just count, now, and it says Av 10, but actually what I found out is that Av 10 is actually the 9th here, or the 6th, pardon me, of August. So where it says Av 9, this should actually be Av 10. And so what I did is I counted one day too far, and I also got my calendar wrong. So when I initially had done it, I didn't have the calendar converter, and I was doing this manually, and I made a mistake. But it lined up, and I was correct as far as that goes, except that it's August 6th. So I'm changing that. That's what I'm trying to tell people here is I'm changing the date that I had for the destruction of Jerusalem. It's still the 10th day of the 5th month, but in any of the Babylonian calendar converter, all these different things, it's going to show the August 6th, not August 7th. So if you go back to this chart that I showed you initially, and I hope people are following this because I'm not getting much feedback. So I know people are tired, but so you can see here I have August 6, 70 AD for the 10th day of the 5th month. So that's a revision that I'm making on how I understand the counting. Now, you're going to see when I count in the week of Christ, what August 6th is actually 32 AD, right? You can see that there. So it's 32 AD. And just straighten some of this out. But I'm saying that August 6th, 70 AD is when the temple was destroyed. Now this period of time here, 38 years, what is 38 years? Why is the 10th day of the 5th month and August 6, 32 AD? Why does it line up with August 6, 70 AD as also the 10th day of the 5th month? Does anybody know the reason? What's the significance of 38 years? What's that?
It's a period of 2 Metonic cycles.
No, it's 2 Metonic cycles. Now, so I'm going to explain Metonic cycles. And I'm going to show you why this is important and why this comes from the week of Christ. So I already showed some people earlier, but I'm going to show you again. So let's go through this. Now, one of the things we learned in the week of Christ was that we could count 490 years 2 different ways. So if I count 490 years times a year of 360, I'm going to get a different number of days than if I count 490 years times 365.242 days. So how many days, if 490 times 360 is what? I need somebody to do the math for me.
$176,400.
Okay, 17,000.
176.
176? Yeah.
400.
Yeah, 176,400 days. There you go. Okay. And if I multiply it by 365,242, I'm not going to get an exact number. I'm going to have a decimal.
Times what?
365,242. So that's how long a year is.
It's 64,428,000.
Times 490? 490 times.
Oh, I've totally missed. I can't even see what you're doing on the board.
400, 490.
I think it's 178,968,580.
Okay, so 178.
968,580.
Yeah, so it ends up becoming this number if you round it up. 178,968. Now the difference between these two numbers is 2569, right? That is, if I subtract this number from this number, I'll get 2569. And remember, in the week of Christ, from the 10th day of the 5th month in 27 AD to the 10th day of the 5th month in 34 AD, how many days was it? So how many days is it from here to here? Does anybody remember? Because it's more than 2520.
I don't remember.
It's 25,069 days. Now, that's just a cardinal count. Now, if I count the actual days, like I count this as 0, then it'll be 2569 days to here. If I count it as 1, it'd be 2570. That is, it's a 2520 plus a Jubilee cycle, right? So the number of actual days in 7 years on a biblical calendar is 49 days more than 2520. And if I count the number of years in a solar year, like 490 solar years, the difference between 490 prophetic years, if I count them as 490 times 360 days, is going to be this number. So when we notice this, I thought this is very profound because it's showing a relationship between the prophetic year and the solar year. So the Metonic Cycle has this odd relationship that in the 70-week prophecy, it's going to give you a difference that is the exact number of days of the 70th week. Does that make sense to people? And somebody's mic, Chris, your mic's on. It's okay if you're talking. Otherwise, we hear a bunch of noise. So this idea has shown up again in hour lines. So what I want to show people, and what I've tried to show, is that when we have done the work that we've done with dates in our line, we didn't just create them out of nowhere. They came from the analysis of prophecy. And now sometimes we notice things that we hadn't actually noticed, like this I noticed later, but actually I had done something very similar already in our lines. So I found it in our lines first and then noticed it in the week of Christ. And I wasn't looking for it in the 70 weeks. It just showed up just because we started dealing with this prophetic year. And so Stephen was using it as a symbol, but I started to just do the math. So it became something quite interesting. Now, we have this date. So just now that we know the Metonic Cycle, what the Metonic Cycle is, I'm just going to explain it a bit, how this relates to what we're doing here. So in a biblical calendar, you have a period, you have these years, and some of these years are going to be leap years, and some of these years are going to be normal years. That is, they're not going to be leap years. So 1, 2, 3. So if I have 19 years here, hopefully you can see all those years, and I'm going to number them. Some of these years are going to be either 353 days long. Some will be 354. Some will be 355. And those will be what we call normal years. There's a deficient year, means it has one less day, and I can't remember what they call it when they have an extra day. But because the average is roughly 354, but some are going to be less, some are going to be more. But the leap years are going to have an extra month, and they can either be 383, 384, or 385 days long. So they don't add a leap year, they add a leap month. And they're going to do this in these 19 years. And I'm just going to randomly, pick. I'm going to just pick some years. And what you're going to have is you're going to have every 2 or 3 years, you're going to have a leap year.
Hello, guys.
Hi, Mark. So-
I am asking. I said hi,
Hi.
and I am sorry being late.
Yeah.
I wish you to catch up, please.
Okay. Well, you're just going to have to jump in here because I got to explain this. Okay. I'm explaining the Metonic cycle. So that means these ones are all going to have 12 months, and these ones with the X on them are going to have 13 months. So if I have 12 years with 12 months, how many months is that?
144.
12 times 12 is 144. And then I'm going to have 7 times 13. How many is that going to be?
91.
Yeah, 91. And so in a Metonic cycle, there's exactly 235 months. Now, if I wanted to count the number of days, these are not the months that we would use on our calendar. These are the actual synodic months, the lunar months that we see. These would be 235 cycles of the moon. And it's only a few hours off to accuracy. So it's not exactly to the minute, but it is exactly to the day. And if I wanted to count the number of days in a Metonic cycle, I would multiply this by 29.5306. And I would find that the number of days in a Metonic cycle are 6,940 days. So this number becomes significant. And it shows up, this Metonic cycle, in our lines. Now, I'm going to go to Hiroshima. So when did the bombing of Hiroshima or Hiroshima occur?
August 6th, 1945.
Okay, so it's August 6, 1945. So one of the things we see about this date, what is it that August 6th is a symbol of?
Midnight.
Okay, it's a symbol of midnight, and why?
Because it's the 217th day of the year.
Okay. So,
Or
yeah.
was that 147 back from the end?
Yeah, so it's the 217th day of the year, but it's also the date we just had for the destruction of Jerusalem, right? And the date of the destruction of Jerusalem, if I'm going to go back here to 70 AD, is what symbol? What's the biblical date?
510.
The 10th day of the 5th month. And August 6, 1945, which date is it on the biblical calendar?
5th of the 10th.
It's the 26th day of the 4th month.
Way off.
Now, these two symbols are the symbols we had for July 18th. Because remember, in 2020, you have July 18th, Gregorian is the 26th day of the 4th month. And we derive this date from Josiah Litch's prophecy. But then we also had July 18th, Julian, and this is the 10th day of the 5th month. And we derived this from Ezekiel's prophecy, because Ezekiel's prophecy was pointing to the destruction of Jerusalem here. Now, August 6, 1945, is it a destruction?
Yes.
The worst ever, right? The bombing of Hiroshima, up to that point, nothing had ever been seen like it, that, in recorded history that we know of. The number of
I
people
am
killed.
asking.
Yeah.
I ask what is happened in 11th and 14 and 16 and 17 and 19.
These years, this is just a Metonic cycle. This is just every 19 years the calendar repeats. These aren't dates, these are years in a cycle.
Yes,
So nothing happened here. This isn't a point or anything.
I asked what did happen in that many of years.
So the ones here with the
Oh.
X, these have 13 months. The ones without the X have 12 months. That's what that means.
Yeah, some numbers don't have an X on. What many years?
They have 12
Did-
months.
Wait,
But
what?
they're not years. These are not dates. They're just 19 years. It could be anywhere.
Years. What many years of this happened in this earth of I am born?
I don't know. So Mark, I can't answer that question right now. I got to finish this.
Oh,
Okay, so we have these two symbols, the 26th day of the 4th month, the 10th day of the 5th month. Now, when we look at our time here, so I'm gonna put these dates over here, July 18th, the 26th day of the 4th month, and July 18th, the 10th day of the 5th month, Gregorian, Julian. And then we have a date here in 2021. So this is 2020. In this year, which day is the 26th day of the 4th month? Does anybody know?
No.
August 6th, 2021 is the 26th day of the 4th month. So the date that we go back here that we were using that connected us to July 18th, the 26th day of the 4th month here, in this year, the 26th day of the 4th month is this date, August 6th, 70 AD, right? So this August 6th date is another symbol that ties us to this 26th day of the 4th month.
Okay, so just a question.
Yeah.
Is there any significance to like how often is August 6th, the 26th day of the 4th month? Is it something rare or is it
Once every 30 years.
so it's not really that rare.
It's not that rare. It's only because of the structure that it matters,
Oh, okay.
right? And the thing is, God gave us these two symbols, the 26th day of the 4th month and the 10th day of the 5th month. The chances that both those symbols would end up being July 18th on the Julian and the Gregorian, it only occurs in the 1900s and the 2000s because the Julian and Gregorian are 13 days apart.
Mhm.
But in the 1800s, they were 12 days apart, so it wouldn't line up.
Mhm.
So in this year, and it was figured out that when you have July 18th and November 9th and December 25th line up in the way that they do with the 777, and this being the 26th day of the 4th month, this is the only year in history that alignment ever happened.
Wow.
So it's something very rare when you bring in the other elements. So, but now we're looking at 2021. So 2020 has passed, and we look at 2021, and we see this symbol that is tied to August 6th, just like the 10th day of the 5th month is. So we can see that August 6th, back in this history, if you're going to look at the destruction of Jerusalem and the destruction of Hiroshima as having some relationship to each other. Because of prophecy.
Do you know when weeks of Christ coming second time?
No, we don't.
No, I saw your numbers of the weeks of what week,
When he came the first time,
what week of Christ that came and come back.
But we don't know when he comes back. We only know when he came,
I asking now,
but I don't know.
you do the math with the numbers. I am asking now.
Yeah, but it's not that simple. I can't figure that out. And God is going to announce the day and hour of Jesus coming. Now, the point that I want to make here is that we have a relationship between August 6th, 1945 and August 6th, 2021. And what is that relationship? How many years is it?
'76.
Okay, it's 76 years. Now, remember, a Metonic cycle is 19 years. And when I did that week of Christ thing and I had August 6th, 32 AD, it was 38 years. These both being the 10th day of the 5th month. And this 76 is just double of 38, right? So this is 4 times 19 years between the bombing of Hiroshima and August 6, 2021. So what would this mean? And what does it not mean? So why am I bringing this out? Am I time setting? Am I saying that Nashville's actually going to be attacked on August 6, 2021? And we were wrong to choose July 18th because there's a relationship of structure that we had ignored? Is that what I'm saying?
No.
Okay, so what am I saying? Why am I noticing this? What is the importance of noticing August 6th? Why are we doing this?
Because it's part of the structure.
Okay, it's part of a structure. Now, we may not know what the structure means exactly. And I wouldn't say it's not possible that Nashville could be attacked on August 6th. But I don't think that that's what it means. I don't think that we're just simply going to say, well, we were wrong about this date and we're now going to predict this date, because you would need more evidence. Because the amount of evidence we had for July 18, 2020 was massive. But the event didn't occur. And the reason the event didn't occur is a number of reasons, but one of them is we didn't know everything. And that's always a problem. So we don't know everything, and we were ignoring evidence that would tell us that was going to be a failed prediction. But even when we look at August 6th, we have less evidence, I would argue, to say we know Nashville is going to be attacked on August 6th. We might think, well, maybe, but we wouldn't have the certainty with the evidence we have right now that August 6th is going to just be July 18th in 2021, even though it has the same date, even though we've now tied this with a Metonic cycle to this date, and even though we've tied it to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, and we've used the week of Christ to do this. So now we have this problem. We can see that there are these structures, but we don't know what they mean. That is, we're not sure what we're supposed to do with all these dates. Now, I want to bring this into our line. Now, I know not everybody is completely familiar, who's going to be watching this, completely familiar with our line. But one of the reasons I believe that July 18 was going to be a failed prediction had to do with the 777 chiasm. And I'm not going to go into it in detail, other than to say, we all know that we have this 777 days at the end. This was from November 9th to December 25th. This is 2021. This is 2019. We had the 252 days to July 18th, 2020. And then we had another 252 days to March 27th. So that's when? When is March 27th?
2021.
Yeah, and when is that date?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, right? So this huge date that we've been talking about in this movement, that's part of Levitical chiasm, that's part of all this structure, it's all worked in all different kinds of ways, is tomorrow. And we don't know that anything's going to happen tomorrow. It may just be part of a structure, but something might. And if something does, it would tell us some more information. Now, sometimes what ends up happening on some of these dates is an increase of light. That is one of the things I've noticed about these lines, is they represent an increase of light to this movement. That they're not always about external events that are going to vindicate us in the eyes of the world or anything. They're just about understanding what God is trying to teach us. Now, of course, we know this is 273 days from March 27th, that is a symbol of 273, to December 25th. And of course, this 777 days, Stephen had worked out from November 9th, 1989 to December 25th, 1991. So the 777 days, which also is related to the week of Christ if you remember where I took the end periods, the 49. So if I take the week of Christ, I got 7 times 7, 7 weeks, 62 weeks, which is 434 years, and then 7, 1 week, so 7. And if I multiply 7 times 7 times 7, I get 343. And if I add them together, the center ones, I get 777. So it's a very unique structure built around this number 7. So this 777 has connections here. And we also found that we could count 434 days from November 9th. And where did we come to? And 343. What date was this? Anybody remember?
No.
January 16.
Yeah, so it was January 16th. And what was the significance of January 16th?
Well, as a symbol, you could say it's a wave offering.
Wave sheaf offering, right? But also we know, remember we had from March 27th, 2021, or 2020, pardon me, we had 100 days of prayer, right?
It's the end of 10 days of prayer, I believe.
Yeah, and then there's 10 days of prayer from January 6th to January 16th. And the days between here, because this is July 4th, is 187 days. Right, so we had these symbols, the 100 days of prayer, which was 144,000 minutes, and the July 4th to July 18th was 18,720 minutes. There's also the 13 days, so we have all this structure. So, I mean, it's just kind of a review, but the point is, this week of Christ is also connected. The symbols of this week of Christ are also connected to the 777. So this week of Christ study produced a bunch of information that we then could analyze what was happening to us. That is, by analyzing prophecies in the Bible, we could then take these dates that we were given and analyze them and see these structures. Now, as some of you know, what's 777 days before November 9th, 2019?
The presentation in Alberta.
This wasn't in Alberta. This was September 23rd, 2017. This is at Lambert Church. And this is me presenting July 18th, not as a date in our line, but as Samuel Snow's letters. So that was 777 days before. It was also the date that the secret rapture was supposed to happen because the Revelation 12 prophecy, you can look that up in Wikipedia, and the Revelation 12 prophecy was predicting that on September 23rd, because you had the woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet and a crown of 12 stars that were in this right place, and that she's going to give birth to this child, because there's the conception comet, and there's the number of times that the, what is it that's in her womb? Anyway, I can't remember all the details. It was Jupiter, I believe. Jupiter or Saturn. Anyway, that was in her womb. So there's a whole bunch of things of why, for 9 months, of why people, this was a prediction that failed. This is a prediction that failed. And so I was saying that this prediction would fail, that was possible. But anyway, you have these 777 days. Now, when we dealt with this line, I went to December 21st, 2012. So this is when the Mayan calendar this is when the world was supposed to end. So this is another failed prediction, but this became significant. Now, a number of things is it's exactly centered between June 22nd, 2011, when Jeff received $165,000 to start the School of the Prophets in Arkansas, and when they had the first camp meeting in Arkansas on June 22nd, 2014. So December 21st is exactly in the center of that. So that's a pretty interesting detail. But what I did is I took this date and I counted 777 days. And I just wanted to see what date would show up. And the date that showed up was February 6th, 2015. Now, out of all the people who could have looked at this, I'm one of the few people who would have known what the significance of it was. That is, February 6, 2015 is my birthday. And I happen to be 52 years old in 2015. Now, my actual birthday, the day I was born, was February 6th, 1963. So what I did is I knew that the Mayan calendar is counting years of 360 days. And they count 52 years as an important number of years. So 360 times 52 is what? It's a symbol of July 1820. But of course, this here, from this birthday here to this birthday here, is a year of 365 and a quarter days. So the number of days, if I was going to count 187,000 or 18,720 days from my birthday, it wouldn't come to February 6, 2015. It would be short. In 52 years, every year would be 5.5 years, or 5.25 years, pardon me, short. And if you multiply 52 times 5.25, what do you get? Anybody know? You get this number 273. So you see this number over here, 273. It's related to this number that we have between 52 prophetic years and 52 solar years, just like we had in the week of Christ with the 490 years. So 52 and 490, I'm not adding them together, but they produce the difference between the prophetic and the solar is 273, and this one is 2569. So that's the difference. So these two symbols are related to each other, but we found this out first before we found this out in the week of Christ. I never thought were the 70 weeks. Now, when I count back then, 273 days, I'm gonna make this a little. 273. I have 504, right? Because 252 is 504 plus 273 is 777. And the date here, so when I count from the day I was born, I come to this date, May 9th, 2014. Now the significance of this is it would have been my 33rd anniversary of my first marriage. But it wasn't. I mean, I guess it's still kind of an anniversary. I just didn't celebrate it. But it's also April 26th. So April 26th is the 26th day of the 4th month. So it serves as a symbol. So we can see that there's something about this. Now there's more to this structure. There's another period of 777 days. There's another date. All these different things are going to be significant, but we're not going to look at them right now. The main thing that I wanted you to see is this 273. Now, so this 273 is a difference between what? So if I have 52 years, it's the difference between the prophetic, and the solar, okay? So that difference gives us 273. Now we also find this example as an interesting example in my life as well. So I was born February 6th, 1963. Now, when was I married? Anybody can figure out when I was married? What year? If you did some math. 2014 minus 33. It's going to be May 9th, 1981. So how old was I May 9th, 1981?
18.
I was 18 years old, right? When did I have my first Metonic birthday? February 6th, 1982. 273 days after I got married. Now, the number of days from when I was born to when I was married was 6,667. That means if you take this number here and you add 273, you get the Metonic cycle of 6,940 days. So this relationship of the Metonic cycle here, this 273 days, is related to this 52 years. So what's the relationship between 19 years and 52 years? Why is that showing up? Any guesses? Why has this shown up in this line? This is my personal line, right? Though it's related to our big line. But it showed us something, that this number 273 has a relationship. And what is it a relationship of? I really need your input here. I really wanted this to be more a participation study. But does anybody have any guesses? What is being illustrated here? Just think about it in a very literal sense, what these things represent.
We know 327 is the, represents the Levites.
Okay, so 273 represents the Levites, the 27th day of the 3rd month, March 3rd, right? It's a symbol.
Right.
And now, of course, May 9th is still the April 26th Julian, so it has a symbol of this message. What does the marriage represent?
Two becoming one?
What's that?
Two becoming one?
Okay, but in a prophetic sense,
The marriage of Christ to his people.
okay, the marriage of Christ to his people, right? In the parable of the 10 virgins, does it have anything to do with the marriage? Right? So we can see that there is this parable of the 10 virgins. Do the Levites show up in this parable of the 10 virgins?
I would say, yeah.
Okay, can you explain how they show up? Because if we look at Millerite history, we don't see it directly. We see it in our line, but how is it being symbolized? Because what is the midnight cry about?
Go ye out to meet him.
Okay,
Go ye
So-
out to meet the bridegroom.
right. So there's a message that's given, which we call the midnight cry. And in our history, we have a parallel to that. Now we have the loud cry, of course, too, on the big line. But within the line of Adventism that parallels the first and second angels' messages, we also have a midnight cry, right? And that's the midnight cry message that we're being prepared to give.
I know.
And Mark,
I know it is starting one night cry. I know it is starting the night cry. He used you. Yes, he used you. He put you in deep sound sleep. He speak to you through the night cry. It is like he making. Yes, he making. He put you in deep sound sleep. He talk to you. He making that cry. Talk to you. He put you in a deep sleep. But he put you in deep sleep first. He talked to you through the night cry. It is like he make it.
so the cry wakes us up.
He not tell you. Christ not tell you what is night cry. It is to be.
Okay, so yeah, I'm not quite sure what you meant, but I'll accept it. Okay, so we know that this is a symbol, the symbol of the Levites. Tomorrow is March 27th. It's significant in our line. And we know March 27th is also connected to the history in the story of Ezra, because that's the beginning of the 13th day, or the first day of the 13th month. So that's when they had to add the extra month in 457 BC, was on March 27th. So we have this symbol that shows up again and again, shows up in our lines. It was connected last year, March 27th last year was the beginning of 100 days of prayer for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And so now we're here in March 27th, 2021. Technically, we're sort of here already because the sun set, if we're using a biblical date. And we don't know what it means yet. Now we have this 273 here that's connected to this marriage, which is about the parable of the 10 virgins. It's about the wedding. And it shows up here in this line to show us that this line is this 777 chiasm, is a line for FFA about our connection to giving a message to the Levites. Yeah, Mark.
Excuse me, please.
Yeah.
He made night cry. He not tell you, but he made maiden the night cry. He not tell you what it is be like.
So we need to know what the midnight cry is, you're saying?
He making night cry.
Yeah.
He not tell us what it is to be.
Okay, but we will know it when it happens.
No, you sent me that movie.
Yeah, the movie, Tell It to the World, about the midnight cry.
Yes, but he said this to me in like a dream last night.
Oh, so God gave you a dream last night about the midnight cry?
No, and Amy talking. He said to me, he want me say to you, you said to them. He said, I making the night cry in my both hands. You don't know what is to be.
Okay.
I am not ready to show that night cry is.
Okay. So
You're that ready to
yeah, I want to look at
wait for it.
yeah, and I want to look at another example of the Metonic cycle. Again, it's going to be something in my personal life.
Yes, not forget mine. That it is missing that too. Of I have gone up.
Okay, so here's something interesting. This is the date I was converted. August 11th, 1980. Now, what was happening in August of 1980 in Adventism?
Glacier View.
Okay, Glacier View. So Desmond Ford is presenting to a committee, and they're going to analyze his work, and they're going to make a pronouncement, which I believe happens on August 15th. So Glacier View is happening in 1980. In 1980, I'm in British Columbia in 100 Mile House, BC, and I'm converted on this date. This is the date I give my life to God, 1980. Now, we also have a date, August 6th to 11th, 2018. Does anybody know what happened on August 6th to 11th, 2018? Probably not, except if I've told you. But this is the last time I presented for Future News Canada. This was a camp meeting just before I went to, Heidi and I went to the School of the Prophets later in August, not long after that, a couple of weeks later, at Jeff's invitation. So we ended up, I think it was August 22nd that we ended up in leaving for Arkansas. We drove down. But this is the last time I presented. Now, the last date I presented from the 6th to 11th. So the last date I presented was August 11th. Now, this is how many years? 1980 to 2018. It's hard to believe that I'm this old. But this is 38 years. And so this is 2 Metonic cycles. And again, we have 2 dates tied together. Now, this date is August 11th. Now, so there's a connection here, which I can't remember how it worked, but the idea here that there's these 2 Metonic cycles and that we have these showing up, 4 Metonic cycles here, and that we have a relationship between a Metonic cycle and 273 that gives us this relationship here. Now, I know that I'm going to get married here. I think it's 271 days later is May 9th, 1981. So there's something behind that. I can't remember what it is. I had figured it out before, I don't remember. But what we have is we have Adventist history, and we have this history. This movement is tied to Adventist history, and it's tied to through the people in the movement. Now, I'm using my birthday here. We can actually use Stephen's birthday. We can use Dwight's birthday. I've used Dan's birthday. And all these things
You
end up
don't
showing
know
up,
about
fitting
their
into our
mind.
lines in very different ways. What, Mark?
You
I
don't
didn't
know
use
their
yours.
mind.
Well, your birthday is, I know you're born in 1984. And what date?
Yes. October 1984, 31st.
So October 31st?
October 1984.
4. And the 31st?
31st, yeah.
Okay. So you're born October 31st. Okay. And that's
Yes.
an important date. What's October 31st?
I turning a year old.
Yeah. But it's also an anniversary of something else.
I don't know.
Anybody else?
95 Theses.
Yeah. Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses to the door of Wittenberg in that was 15, what year?
1590 something.
No, it wasn't 1590. It was like
1523.
1523.
Uh,
I don't
I-
think so.
no,
Like I think it was like 15 or 1519 or
1570.
1517. Okay,
oh,
that's
okay.
it. 1517. So 500. It'll be 504 years in October 13th this year. So it's probably another date that we should be aware of. And I know two people in this movement, besides Mark, who's born on October 31st. Friend Hal, that's why his name's Hal, because it's also Halloween. And Colin, he's also born on October 31st. So whatever that means, I don't know. But what we do have is the point that I'm making is that when people are born and the relationship to the lines are also illustrations in this movement. And it doesn't make somebody a prophet just because their birth date happens to show up in a line. And it doesn't mean you have to listen to them just because their birth date shows up in a line. It does mean, though, that God is in control of this movement and that we are tied to these lines. And I found other people also are tied to these lines in various ways. They have their personal lines, and the personal lines weave together like a tapestry to this movement. So we're going to be looking at, I'm still going to do one more presentation on the week of Christ next Friday. But on Sunday, Aran's going to be presenting some more of these dates in our lines. So that's going to be Sunday afternoon. Tomorrow, Daniel Fontenot, I believe, is presenting.
You not give me the link.
Yeah, I'll give you the link, Mark. And Daniel Fontenot, and actually I did send you the link, Mark.
What?
I sent you the link.
I'm not open it up.
Okay, but I sent it to you. Sent it to everyone. And
I'm not open that link.
but it's still there.
Sorry.
Well, you must have opened it to get to this meeting. It's the same link for the other meetings.
It is a different passcode.
Nope, it's the same one. Okay, so
But I don't know. I missed a study. I don't have a link.
Yeah, but the link will work again. You just keep using the same link.
Hey, the day is gone.
Doesn't matter. You just keep,
Sorry, I not be home.
okay.
I did different place.
Oh, okay.
I am is a whole Bible study.
Okay. So anyway, we have Daniel Fontenot presenting tomorrow. Then we got Collins Bible Studies Saturday night. We have Sunday morning, where we're going to continue reading Jeff's article
Vidor,
in Time of the End magazine. Yeah, Mark.
excuse me. Sorry, being rude. I am home. I still home of this weekend.
So then
I did sign in.
okay, sounds good.
Just Easter Sunday, you won't be home, Mark.
Yeah, that's the next weekend.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not.
Yeah.
Easter Sunday.
Okay. Okay, so anyway, you can see that we have all these numbers, all these dates, but what we see is we see that we have this connection to Christ's line, and that it's connected to our line, and that it's giving us structure, and this structure relates to the relationship between the prophetic and the solar year, and that relationship between the prophetic and the solar year gives us this number 273 in a 52-year cycle. And then the Metonic cycle itself gives us also this relationship. Now it shows up in my personal line here from when I'm born to when I'm married to when I'm 19, but it also shows up in other lines. It shows up here in this line, but it also shows up in other ways. So I've other places where I found this same connection between dates, a Metonic date and another date. And I can't remember what they are right now, but I know August 11th shows up, and what's the other one? There's another one that shows up in that relationship. So I'll have to illustrate that. Now, it almost shows up here. You can see this 271 is almost 273. So if this was in a leap year, it'd be 272, and it would go August 10th to May 9th would be 273. But there's someplace else it shows up, and I can't remember where. So any questions? I know that's a lot of things to think about.
So, yeah, I have a question for you.
Okay.
You've been putting a lot of numbers and dates up there on the board, and you tried to summarize it there with this relationship aspect. Could you go over that once more? Just the relationship piece of it, not necessarily up on the board, going through it on the board, but help me understand the what you glean from comparing the relationship.
So are you talking about the relationship between the prophetic year and the solar year?
Correct.
Yeah. So in the week of Christ, if we counted 490 solar years, that's normally how we do the 70-week prophecy.
Right.
Okay? 490 solar years. And that's going to bring us to, well, and actually we count biblical years. I mean, I did. But 490 solar years would be exactly the difference between the 70th week and the whole period, right? So that 2, 5, 6, 9 days is the difference between a prophetic 490 years and a solar 490 years. So that week of Christ where we have 2,569 days, which we normally say 2,570 because we're counting it ordinally. But if you count it cardinally, it's that. If we take that number of days, you can see now that we could have taken this 490 times 360, and it would have brought us to the beginning of that week of Christ, the 70th week. Now,
Okay.
right? So it gives us this relationship or this ratio. Now, when we do the same thing with that period of 52 years between a solar year and a prophetic year, the number that we get is 273. So we get that number of the Levites. Now the question is, why 52 years? Why are we using 52 years?
I was just going to ask you.
Yeah, so the reason we used it is because 52 years, when we counted 52 years in prophetic years, it's the symbol 18720. So I'll show you what I mean. So where I noticed this, or where I started using it, was, I'm just going to share my screen here.
So the 18720, that's days?
Yeah, 18720 days
Days,
in,
okay.
in 52 prophetic years. So for some reason, there, that's better. So this is Stephen's work here. I just got to get it so it fits to the window. So what Stephen had done is he had, you can see here, this is Noah, his 120 years. And Stephen's not using the actual number of days. He's just using the days as a symbol. So he takes 120 years and multiplies it by 360. When he does that, he gets 43200. So he
Okay.
gets that number of days. It's symbolic. It's not the actual literal number of days. It's the
Right.
prophetic year.
Yeah.
And they multiplied it by from the flood to the servitude beginning in 1533 or 1933 BC. He's got this number 164,520 days, and then he has the 400 years of servitude. So that's from the weaning of Isaac to the Exodus, and 400 years is 144,000 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 40 years from the Exodus to crossing the Jordan is 14,400 days. Now, what he noticed is this period of time from the prophecy of Noah to the division of the kingdom in 977 BC is 1,533 years. Now, 1,533 BC is the Exodus, but there's 1,533 years from the prophecy of Noah to the division of the kingdom. Now, the division of the kingdom also happens after a period of 120 years. So you could actually put 120 years in here from Saul's anointing to the death of Solomon. So again, you would have that same symbol at the beginning of the end. But the interesting thing about it is that we also have periods of 520 years here. So from the Exodus to the building of the temple is 520 years, and 520 years is 187,200 days prophetically. So you keep seeing these numbers showing up, 144,000. And the other thing that ends up happening with this line is there is 977 years from Noah's prophecy to 1533 BC. And then there is 1,533 years to 977 BC. So you can see the 977 and the 1533 and the 977 and the 1533. And that's just because of the date of the flood is 2510 BC. And then also from the division of the kingdom to Artaxerxes' decree is 520 years. And that symbol is 187,200. So Stephen was introducing this prophetic symbol of 360. And what I did is I said, well, what would the 490 years be if I did it as 490 times 360? And I found it happened to be exactly to the day difference between 490 solar years. Does that help?
Yeah, that does some, yeah.
Yeah. So we can see that number 52 shows up in this 18720 symbol. Now, when we applied these, also the Metonic cycle, now we have this relationship that we can see in this 273. So the difference between 52 solar years and 52 prophetic years is 273 days. So that becomes profound. We can see the same type of pattern in the 490 solar and prophetic with the 52 solar and prophetic. But the symbols that they give us are two different symbols, but they still are derived the same way, and they're both significant. So that means the week of Christ, where we've studied a prophecy in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in the book of Daniel, and it's given us all this information. That prophecy deals with the destruction of Jerusalem, which Ezekiel also addresses. So Ezekiel addresses the destruction of Jerusalem, which occurs on the 10th day of the 5th month. And now Daniel is addressing it in connection with Christ coming. The destruction of Jerusalem is connected to the cross.
Yes.
And so we have these symbols just show up in these prophecies of the Old Testament and also prophecies of the New Testament that come from our lines. So that means we're getting a feedback. So we use these prophecies to create dates in our history. And as we analyze these dates in our history, it gave us information to analyze the prophecies of the past and to see things in those prophecies that we wouldn't have seen if it wasn't for the history we have now that we're going through. So the way that I look at it, the way that I look at prophecy is this Ellen White statement where she says that fulfilled prophecy, when we're passing over the ground, a fulfilled prophecy, it reflects back on past events. It shines light on past events. And then that light reflects forward into our history ahead of us and gives light for our feet along the path that we're treading. So this is one of the principles that I use in understanding prophecy, is that prophecy, I can't reject the past. Prophecy actually lightens up the past. It helps us understand the old prophecies better, but it also helps us understand where we're headed. And,
Okay,
and
so
it does that by the connection with the past.
Okay, so when you say our history, can you define that a little better for me? Are you talking about everyone's history today? Or are you talking
Yeah.
about FFA history?
Well, I think our history is tied up with FFA, right?
It is.
So that's why, when I put my birthday on the line, some people get a little squeamish about it. I know Larry Hine, or not Larry Hine, Larry Lesher, he didn't really like that. And probably other people didn't. I know Bronwyn didn't like it. But I wasn't trying to claim I was a prophet, because I don't believe that I am. So why would I claim it? It would be silly. But also, to me, I think that every one of us should be able to have evidences or witnesses that we're tied up with this movement. And the fact that it happened to be my birthday, I didn't like it because I knew that I had to present it. And I didn't like that part of it. But I knew that it was true and that it told us something about the lines and that it was pointing to these failed predictions. And nobody wanted to listen to it because I was in that line. But I was saying, it looks like July 18th might be a failed prediction. I presented it to Jeff. He never responded. So I went along with what was going on. As well, I also saw all the evidences for Nashville. So my point is that our line is the FFA line. And it has a certain starting point too. We have this whole movement. We have Jeff, as if you want to say as Miller, but he's an individual really up until after 9/11. I mean, there's people who are interested in what he's teaching, but he doesn't have FFA. That shows up later. And, I use the date that Jeff gave me, which is June 22nd, 2011, and June 24th, 2014, Those are the dates Jeff has given me that he sees as significant. And the June 22nd date is, significant. That's the day we had international attention drawn to us in 2020 with the publication on June 21st of the July 18th prediction in the Tennessean. So international attention was drawn the next day, partly because the international attention they're behind us in time. So, or ahead of us, I guess. We're behind. But you understand what I'm saying, that June 22nd becomes a symbol, and it's also the center of the 777 chiasm, June 22nd, 2017. So June 22nd is a symbol of FFA. It's a symbol of Pentecost. It's Samuel Snow's third letter, June 22nd, which is published on the 6th day of the third month. And we can see that the 63 becomes a very powerful symbol, because remember when Jeff spoke on September 7th, 2019, 9 times 7 is 63, and 63 days before November 9th, Jeff spoke and addressed the Omega. So when I talk about our line includes us as individuals because we're part of the line, but the line is the line of FFA. That's the line we're a part of. And our involvement in that movement, I believe, is marked by God. And it's marked in various ways for different people. Maybe it's the people who are just the chronology guys that we end up with our birthdays in there. Maybe other people do too. But we're all involved in these lines. And because God is leading us individually,
But
part of a movement.
But one last thing.
Yeah, Mark?
I know seeing my own year I am born
Okay, well, I'm going to look at it.
is not on the thing.
I'll send you something with your birthday in it. I'll see if it has any significance, okay?
Yes, I like you to talk about that too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so hopefully that's helpful. And yeah, we got a lot of things still to study, a lot of things we still need to understand. So I know it's a lot of information as well. So thanks, everyone. We're going to close with prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we are so thankful for the Sabbath, for the time of rest. We just ask for your Holy Spirit to be here in our lives. And we just pray, Lord, for your healing hand to be upon those who are suffering various health problems. And we also ask, Lord, that you can continue to work in our life and teach us and guide us. Thank you for hearing our prayer. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.